Okay, I believe I am here and live, you guys. There it goes. There it goes. There it goes. There it goes. Hey, everybody, Facebook family and friends, what's going on? It is Sunday night. Sunday night, 8 o'clock. We go ahead and do our little thingy here. We've been talking for the last couple weeks about incarceration, the effects on our community, the effects on our friends, our family, our victims. We're going to kind of continue along that line tonight. Although we're absolutely in open discussion, I'll field questions about anything. As you guys know from watching my feeds, there's so many of you guys who are pretty loyal to watching the feeds regularly. That my crowd has no filter. They say and ask anything they want, which is pretty cool. I like it. I love the fact that you guys are so open and willing to participate, that there's never any telling what questions I'm going to get or what comments you guys are going to make. So I definitely enjoy fielding those questions. You guys are pretty amazing. I don't think I could ask for a better group of followers and friends and family when it comes to the show. I do want to send a big shout out real quick. I have a really good friend, Kayla. She watches regularly. It's her birthday today. Happy birthday, sweetheart. Chat, send out some hearts. It's Kayla's birthday. She's been a friend for a long time. She's pretty amazing. So we appreciate that. So last week we were talking with my sister Prima about how incarceration affected my family on a personal level. And, I don't always think about it in that way. Oh, just so you know, guys, look, both eyes okay. Followed the rules all week. Didn't need a backhand or anything. Not to make light of domestic abuse. Sorry, Lizzie, if I upset you. But anyways, it's been a long week. It's been a long, hard week. Those of you who follow my daily posts from the job site know that we cleaned out a pretty big house, a hoarder house. We got it all cleaned up. We got all that stuff out of there. It was rough, man. Like, we had a crew of 10 in there at most points, working away. And, it's funny because I try to employ anybody I can. I try to employ people that we know, people from our neighborhood. And sometimes those people have a past, and we try to make sure we give them that second chance. So tonight, as you can see down at the bottom, our banners are working this week. I know last week they weren't. That's because last week I did this show without my producer, and she kind of laughed at me. But, it's 8 o'clock here, which means it's like 2 a.m. in England. And they're going through their own stuff, and she has a job. She has, her daily life. She doesn't get paid for this crap. She does this stuff because she loves us, and she's a great friend. She's dealing with her own experience of incarceration with her husband, who's actually from our community, right? He's from right here in Racine. Her and I we were just talking about having a discussion about their experience, what they're dealing with through their relationship and their marriage, and her being in England, him being here in Wisconsin while incarcerated, and the stuff she goes through. She can actually chat and comment with us. So if she chooses to, she'll join in as well. We're going to wait. We got about 9 of us on here now watching. Like I said last week, I encourage you guys to like, share, comment, please. It's your questions that drive our discussion. So like if we don't get any discussions at all, or any questions at all, then it just becomes an open-ended stream, which can get a little boring to some people. Me, I don't get tired of hearing myself talk, so it doesn't make much difference. For those of you who know me, know that. So we're talking about crime in our community and how it affects us, how it affects our personal lives. What does it do? What is your experience with incarceration? Have you been incarcerated? Do you have family members who are incarcerated, who have been incarcerated? How did it affect them when they came home? And what did it do to your community, right? What did it do to the community in general? Were you afraid to go out after? Those are the kind of things that we're looking to discuss. So we're definitely looking here. Let's see, we're kind of quiet. I'm gonna send out a few more notifications. Normally we're a lot more talkative by now. I don't know what's going on with you guys. Chat, what's up? Let's hear your guys' voice. Rain ding dong. All right, I'm sending out some notifications so that people can start getting on here. Otherwise, how was your guys this week? I know it started off really nice. We had some days in the 70s, and now it's back down to freezing temperatures and snow tomorrow. Not looking forward to that. I know I've been enjoying the sunshine the last couple days. Bam, bam. All right, I'm sending out these notifications. Usually I do this beforehand. I'll send out a bunch of notifications. You guys will notice when I first start the feeds, you hear that little clicking and me looking at the bottom of my screen. And that's normally because I'm sending out these little notifications to my followers and to my friends, letting them know that we are going live and what the subject is. So I'm doing this during the feed right now. And that's because you guys are really quiet today. It's kind of odd. I'm not used to that. I'm used to you guys blowing up my feed. The stigma that's placed on inmates once they are trying to integrate back is the worst. Yo, what's up, Unc? I see you, Dylan, Sandra. Yeah. So that stigma is something that obviously I'm familiar with. I've been a part of, and I've had to deal with. And I deal with it firsthand, and I still do at times. I've built enough of a reputation in town to where I'm known, and so that stigma isn't so hard on me now, right? Like, I'm not as. Am I sharing this public? Because I'm not getting. Hey, Julie, I'm not getting the comments on the StreamYard. I'm only getting them on the Facebook because I'm clicking back and forth. Kat, where's my music? I have to figure out how to do that. So they muted part of our broadcast last week. So I have to figure out how to include the music again. So, anyways, Sandy, I've built up enough of a reputation in town, and I'm well known enough now that I am not getting so much of the stigma, right? People are accepting me for who I am. They know who I am. They know what I'm about. They know that my life isn't what it used to be. And because of that, I don't deal with the stigma as much as other people do. Trying to find out why. Thanks, Julie. But yeah, there is a stigma when men and women come home from incarceration. It is hard to find them employment. I know I've worked with quite a few of them, trying to help them get jobs and help them get placed. And there's some companies out there that are super willing and super forgiving, and they're willing to give anyone a chance depending on what their crime is. Obviously, you're not going to put a bank robber as a bank teller. I tell people all the time, be realistic what you're looking for in a job after coming home. Obviously, if you're a car thief, you're probably not going to get a job running cars back and forth at a car lot, right? You've already proven that that's probably not the best thing for you. They might start you at some part else of the dealership, but driving the cars probably wouldn't be what you'd look for. But how do we get past that stigma? Not inner live stream. You need to make live stream live, not private on your page. Why was it private on my page? All right, you guys bear with me as I make this stream not private. It should be public. Let me see, you guys. See, that's frustrating for me because all of my stuff should be public. I try to make sure. Save this video, copy link, edit audience, public. Ring ding dong, people. So manage posts. Let me make sure this is on public. Posted by. All right. I think we're cooking with fire now. Share now, public. All right, let's get this playing. Let's get to my StreamYard. All right, there, your comments are coming in. Missy, you need me to produce you in the background. It wasn't on your page. Yeah, I just got it fixed, you guys. I apologize. Dylan, what's up, nephew? I love you, boy. Sandra, hey, Missy. Mommy Missy, everybody, you guys know I'm on her show quite often. Me and Sammy have been there a few times. We love her. She is amazing. Missy, maybe you, me, and my producer will get together, and then the three of us can coordinate because it's super late for her. Like right now, it's 2:00 in the morning for her. It's 2:22 in the morning there. So if we go on to our 10 p.m. time, right, our 2-hour slot, it's like 4 in the morning for her. She gets to go to bed. Hey, Brett, I put a big, huge shout out at the beginning of this for Kayla. Let her know we said happy birthday. We send our love. I hope you guys are having a great time there, nephew. But yeah, Sandra, that stigma, that's something that we have to work past, right? Society is never going to really stop seeing us in that light unless we change what they see, right? So they're so used to us coming home, going back, and whether that be by our actions or because the system's predisposed to returning us to incarceration, it doesn't really matter because it's not going to change without us, right? So if I hadn't had such a strong support circle and worked so hard to become a different person and to show show the world that I was a different person, I'm not sure whether or not that stigma would still be as strong as it was in the beginning for me, right? I know now that, I don't really have that problem very often unless it's somebody who absolutely doesn't know me, has never met me, and doesn't know anybody know me either. So yeah, that's something that the person who comes home really needs to work at, right? They need to really push hard. And all of us as a community need to push hard about giving them that second chance, showing, our friends, our family, our coworkers, that men and women who have been incarcerated can come home and be productive members of our society. They can come home and help us, as a whole. They can come home and be better people, right? That doesn't mean coming home from incarceration, every single one of us is. Obviously, that's a matter that we have to take on personal responsibility for, right? We have to be willing to become better people and work at being those better people and showing the community that's who we are. So it is hard, and that sucks. But at the same time, if it wasn't hard, I'm not sure that people would work so much at, getting rid of it. Like I consciously think about how I'm viewed by others, right? I don't care what people think about me in general, but I do consciously try to show people that I'm a better person through my actions and through my words, right? And it's just like biblical people, when I talk to them, we talk all the time, faith without acts and acts without faith, right? It's the same, right? Let's just transfer that over to us as human beings and what we're dealing with now without any of the religious aspect, right? I can come home and say I'm sorry, but if I don't live a life that shows that I'm changed, am I really sorry? And I can live a life of change, but if I don't acknowledge the fact that I had did wrong in the past, who's going to really listen to it, right? So they want to hear me say, I'm sorry for who I was and what I've done, and that's not who I want to be. And then they need to see me do those actions that follow suit with that belief, that statement, right? They need to see that I am working hard. I am, giving back to my community. I am helping those who need help, and that I can, and I can be, or give service to my community. My crimes occurred 31 years ago. I'm still in with the stigma of incarceration. Jack. So Jack Moore is a good friend of mine. He's commented on every feed we've had since we started doing our Sunday nights slot. Jack was one of the first guys I actually made friends with. And there's others. But Jack he was an older guy. I was younger. He gave me a chocolate bar, put it on my pillow. No, joking. We were from opposite sides of the fence. And we were from like total opposition when it came to our gang backgrounds. And yet we formed a bond and a friendship, and he stayed loyal to that friendship. And so did I. And Dog was always there to give me the advice that I needed but didn't want to hear and didn't listen to at first, right? So there was a lot of men in my life while incarcerated who, even though we were incarcerated and we were criminals, they were encouraging me to become a better human being, right? They would tell me the things that I needed to hear, even though I didn't want to hear them. And I didn't listen to them until years later, where I started to internalize and recognize that the life I was leading wasn't the life that I wanted. And so then I started thinking about the conversations I had with all these assholes who I thought were just old fuddy-duddy dudes who were, just running their mouths. And it wasn't. There was like real sage advice in there. And you're right, Jack, your crimes were committed 31 years ago. But, since your release, you've done a lot of good things and you're still home, which is really the most important thing. The longer we're home, the more people see, well, maybe we're not going to slide back to that. But you're right, bro. 31 years is a long time to continue to live with that stigma. Likewise, the last time I was in trouble was 1994, 1995. And so you figure, that's 20 plus years ago. And I still have to fight that stigma, but I only been home 8 years, right? I haven't been home as long as I was gone yet. All right, Missy, I think it's bullshit that someone makes a mistake and tries to reform themselves, but then gets put down over and over when you have served your time and trying to make your life better. Okay, so Missy, I agree and disagree, right? So, yes, it sucks when people use criticism as a control, right? Well, fuck him, he's an inmate. Or fuck him, he's an ex-con. Or he deserves it because he committed a crime 29 years ago. I agree, right? But when you say that we've served our time, right? There's a talk that we have in group at Formers Anonymous. So those of you guys who know me well know that I'm a part of a 12-step program called Formers Anonymous, founded by one of my closest friends and confidants, Sammy Rangel. Sammy grew up in a life of torture, left home at 12, began his life of violence and crime, was incarcerated for almost as long as I was, and then came home and has now been working in the community. He went to school, got a PhD. He founded the 12-step program that I'm a part of and I chair now, right? And it's called Formers Anonymous. And you can look us up on Facebook. I encourage you to look up Sammy Rangel on Facebook and on YouTube, or I'm sorry, on the website. It's sammyrangel.com. Read his book, read his posts. So he's a life coach. He's also one of my closest friends. You know, I've watched his children grow up. He's been by my side helping me with my children and my life since I've been home. And I genuinely love the dude. He's a jerk face, but he's a huge part of my recovery, and I'll be in recovery for life. Dick Van Dyke, I was just watching some clips about his battle with alcoholism, and that was one of the things that they had spoke about, was that, you know, in the 12 steps, we're never cured. We're always either recovering or recovered, but we're never finished with that walk. So you said, you know, we've served our time, and I agree. But in group, we always talk about how when you walk into a store and you buy a loaf of bread, you know, it's $1, but after your taxes, it's $1.04, right? $1.05. So we've paid for our bread, right? When we're incarcerated and we come home, we've paid for our bread. And now what my belief is that after we're home, our life is those taxes, right? So by doing good, by giving back to my community, by working hard, by showing people who I am, by spreading the word of recovery and helping those who are coming home from incarceration live the life of recovery, now I'm paying my taxes on that loaf of bread, right? So even though I went away and I served my prison time, right, I still have taxes to pay. And that's what I'm doing now, right? I'm giving Caesar, you know, what's Caesar's, which is the taxes for the crimes that I committed. And I agree with you. I did my time. You know, it wasn't easy time. I didn't make it easy time. It could have been a lot easier. I could have been home a lot sooner. I'm just not as smart as others. So it took a lot to get it into my head, right? You know, I always tell people I had to have it tattooed on the front of my brain, you know, hey, this isn't the life you want. This isn't what you need. This isn't who you were destined to be. And now that I'm home, oh Lord, you guys, you're going to notice a lot that I yawn. I'm sorry. These last couple weeks have been exhausting. These last couple months, they've been taxing on me, both physically and emotionally. So I do yawn a lot. So what's lost is any recognition of the mental health disability among former offenders. Human beings are not designed to be in a cage, and the punitive institutions are churning out enough PTSD cases to run neck and neck with our veterans, spoken as both a vet and a former offender. Jim, I love you, bro. I love your outspoken truth and honesty. Jim, long-term friend, also confidant, and a coworker. Jim's in the mental health field. He has his own program for anger management, and he's a veteran. I love him. He's my brother. So yeah, Jim. So the PTSD of incarceration is definitely real. This is something we talk about. This is something that they've done studies on. Sammy has, for years, you know, through group and through our private friendship, have talked about the PTSD he dealt with through incarceration. And they've actually done tests that show that the area of our brains affected by incarceration are the same that veterans who come back from combat have, right? They list the same signs of PTSD, right? The same region of the brain that affects our combat veterans are the ones affected by the ones that affect us as former offenders who were incarcerated. And there's reasons why. I believe, you know, a lot of it has to do with the heightened awareness at 24 hours a day, right? You're always on your toes. You're always ready for violence. You're always ready to protect yourself. You're always ready to protect your property, your person, you know, living at that heightened of an awareness and those levels of stress leave a permanent scar on our brain. That's what PTSD is. It's a permanent scar in our brain. And the lack of mental health assistance for inmates is definitely something that needs to be addressed by our Department of Corrections and by our community, right? So for all of you who are speaking out about it and speaking about the injustices that occur during incarceration or after, really it's us that changes it, right? So the more of us that stand up, speak out, spread the word, work at having things changed and demand change, we're the ones who do it, right? And I am always supportive of peaceful means, right? Hypervigilance, and absolutely, that's what affects combat veterans and men and women who are incarcerated. I'm always willing to stand by and fight in a peaceful manner. You know, for me, violence is something I don't agree with. I'm not a pacifist, but I believe violence should only be used for any reason in the most sacredly held manners, right? It's to protect life, it's to protect the safety of others, and that's it. But, you know, if we protest, if we speak out, if we flood our senators and our representatives with letters saying, hey, this needs to change, people who are coming home can be productive members of society if we give them the chance, not even if we do them a favor, right? If we give them the chance to prove that they're ready and willing to reintegrate and become a part of our community, they can, right? And even if we say our success rate sucks, right? Let's look at the worst case scenario. Say we help 1 out of 10 men and women stay home. That's still a victim, that's 10 victims out of 100 that don't become victimized because we've helped the people that would have victimized them become better people, right? We've assisted them in their walk, in their recovery, and we're there for them so that they don't reoffend, right? That's real change, right? That's real work. That's work that really affects our community, right? It affects our families, our friends, our neighbors, our stores. That is the truth. And so I don't see why we wouldn't want to do that. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me when people say, well, why would we help someone, who's coming home from prison? How have they earned it? Well, whether they've earned it or not, how is it not in our best interest? Screw what they've earned. Let's think of this in a selfish way, right? How is that not in our best interest to do? I'm getting a call, and this is an important call. Hold on, let me just let them know that I'll call them back as soon as we're done with our live feed. Hey, Tish, you're live right now on Facebook. So can I shoot you a call as soon as I'm done with our live feed?
You sure can.
It's going to be about 10 o'clock. Is that okay?
Hey, can you tell Lizzie my number with us?
To what?
Can you text Lizzie my number?
Yes, this is your new number?
Yes.
All right, sweetheart. Love you, hon.
Love you too. Long story.
All right. Sorry about that, guys. We have a very good friend. She's down in Tennessee right now, and we just want to make sure she has what she needs. So let me send this over. But anyways, Jim, what were you saying? As a former employee of a disability-founded nonprofit, the director now of re-entry mental health issues on those platforms is appalling. We need to take academic and professional credentialing as a necessary move forward as former offenders. All right, Jim. All right. So how do we go about doing that? Right. Let's do that. And this is what this show's about. Right. You guys make your statements. My statement to you is always devil's advocate. How do we do that? Right, Jim? So I agree with you. Right. We need to do this. How do we do this? Let's hear your voice on what you believe is the correct steps to make that happen. Because that's how we have to do it, right? What are we willing to do? What steps are we willing to take? How are we willing to make that happen? Save this, create new contacts. Tish. In fact, Jim, are you? Let's see if we can send. Hey, Julie, do you think we can send Jim an invite to see if we can get him in here live to talk to him? I always love talking to him in real life because his brain works on a different level than most of the humans I've ever met. And it's always amazing. I always come away feeling like, I've learned something new or refreshed when I talk to him, even if it's just, for a few minutes. So let's send him an invite and see if we can get him on there. Ding, ding, dong. Jim, are you willing to go on live with us? So, Jim has a good point, right? The direct denial of mental health for men and women coming home is horrifying, right? Why would we not want them to be as prepared as possible to come home? And mental health is part of that preparedness, right? We want people to be prepared. Mental health is a serious issue for those who are incarcerated. We have men who have done, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years in isolation, right? And I'm not going to go into Sammy's entire story, but Sammy spent more time than me in isolation and came home from isolation. How do we do that to a human being? Let's say, he's been in isolation for 10 years. He hasn't been in a crowd. He hasn't been exposed to humanity, or even while incarcerated, right? Can you imagine the feeling on us as human beings, mentally and emotionally, when not only were we not fit for society, even in our exile, right, in our incarceration, we're not fit for that society either, right? We're stuffed into a box, inside of a prison, and left there for years, and then expected to come home and be productive, right? That's definitely send invite to Jim. Jim, you should get an invite. If you click on that, it'll bring you into our backstage, and then we can go ahead and shoot you into the show so that we can talk live, which will definitely be an easier way for us to discuss the situation. But back to the discussion of the whole. So now we have people coming home from incarceration who have spent years being isolated from society and then isolated from their miniature society, right? Because prison is a reflection of outside society. Everyone throw a thumbs up with Monty Yawns. Who just said that? Was that you, Julie? I'm looking at the comments to see who said it, and it's Julie. Oh my God, I love you. So not only have we been exiled from society, right? We've been exiled for our crimes. We've been removed from society because we are not fit to be in society. That's why we're incarcerated. We're moved into a small society in incarceration, which is a mirror of the outside society. We have cliques, we have, factions, we have jobs, we have, homeless people who aren't in jobs. We used to call them the gimmies. Hey, give me a cigarette, or the lemmies. Let me get a cigarette. Let me get a stamp, bro. Let me get a soup. Let me get a nutty bar. We have all those mirrored in the prison system that we have in society. And now, not only have we not been good enough for regular society, now we're not good enough to be in our exile society, and we're removed from that and we're put in a box. And then it can go farther than that. I know Sammy spent close to a decade in double door isolation, I spent 3 years in it. Double door isolation is much, much more than just incarceration, right? That or just being in the hole. That's where you have no contact whatsoever. They limit your contact with staff. You're in a box where the light never changes. Most of the time, you're not allowed clothing, so you're naked. You have a square blanket that's unterrible. They send people home directly from those situations, right? So you go from that one day to walking out of the fence and getting into a sergeant Department of Correction van and being sent home and saying, "Good luck. We hope not to see you again, but we'll keep a light on for you." That's the real deal. How do we go from that? So, how do we do that? Hey, Erica, and then Jim, did you get our feed? I'm trying to. I was trying to private message you, but my phone's not working right. Erica, we're talking today about incarceration and the effects on our community. Yeah, Julie sent you the link, Jimbo. Check your if you don't have it in your regular inbox, check your message requests, and it'll come from Julianne Connington. And then go ahead and hit the link. Erica, I'm okay. I'm not, but I am, right? It's a weird thing. I'm living the me after, and that's what I've come to decide to call it. It's the me after. Dreams Ramirez. I have a client that recently is out of prison within the past year. It's been a hard adjust for her. Then on top of it, intense mental health. It's all about support and balance, taking it day by day. She struggles still. It's hard having support from the community. It's hard having support. I think she was saying no support. Community Sammy Rangel, are those house speakers tied to your head? See, as much as I just got done praising this man, right, Sammy Rangel, no, they're not house speakers tied to my head. They're regular headphones, I promise. See? Regular headphones. Sammy, thanks a lot for the support. You guys, this is the guy who's helped me make it through this long. This is the type of support I get from him. The real love shows, right? When the first thing he does is bully me while I'm on live, right? And I think it's because he's mad that we haven't sent him an invite to come in live. But he might be too busy. He has to lift weights a lot. He has this special machine that helps him strengthen his neck muscles because his head's so large that it flops over, and then he kind of like stumbles. And so he needs to do these special exercises for his head. Dreams. Having no support from the community is so difficult. 12-inch speaker. I hate you, Sammy. I hate you, bro, so much. I definitely feel what you're saying, Dreams. Those of you who do have friends or family who are suffering after incarceration, have them message Sammy Rangel. Look him up. Look up Formers Anonymous. We have a public page. Message the page. We have weekly meetings at 9:30 a.m. on Saturdays, and those groups are specifically designed. That group is specifically designed for men and women coming home from incarceration or from dealing with the addiction of street life, right? And we've asserted many times that street life in itself is an addiction, no different than any other addiction, right? The undeniable draw to commit crime, to be in that lifestyle, had to reboot. All right. So those are definite things that we need to deal with. Formers Anonymous has been and amazing. There's Sammy's comment, Formers Anonymous. And just look us up on Facebook. You can also, again, let me reiterate, you can look up Sammy Rangel's page. It's sammyrangle.com. You can also come onto Facebook and look up his personal page. Send him a message or send me a message. It doesn't matter. We'll get you a link to that morning meeting on Saturday. It's every Saturday at 9:30. I've been a member for over 8 years now. It is probably one of the greatest tools I've found for dealing with Sammy. Go ahead. Yeah, Sammy put his link in. And if you got any other links, Sammy, feel free to share them. We'll get them up there on the banners. That way people can reach them easily. Formers has been an amazing help to me. And, we've grown from a room full of people to an auditorium full of people to we have people all over the world, right? We have regular members and a regular member from Poland. It's not like this is something that's isolated. This is a worldwide problem, right? And as formers, we try to live a life of sobriety, of sanity, of reconciliation. We're really pushing forward to grow as human beings, right? So, Dreams, please, send her through to me or Sammy. We'll get her the link. Yes, peace. Absolutely, Sammy, right? A life of peace. That's been for me the greatest and the hardest thing, right? At the same time, the greatest thing is knowing that I can live a life of peace, that I can be forgiven, that I can forgive myself. And those are our three pillars right there: forgiveness, reconciliation, and redemption. We live by those beliefs. We live by those tenets. If you're interested in formers and you want to understand a little bit about us, one of our tenets is practicing radical forgiveness, right? That's something we need to learn, especially people who come from our lives and our backgrounds and our histories. So yeah, definitely. If you have people who are coming home from incarceration, who are affected by street life, who are affected by criminality, send them through Formers Anonymous, 9:30 every Saturday morning. We actually have a great group. We definitely have a lot more fun than I would have thought a 12-step program would be. But one of the reasons why it is so much fun, oh shoot, Eric, I wish we were kid-free for just 1 hour. Just 1 hour. Anyways, I didn't think it would be as much fun to be in recovery as it is, but our groups are great. We have a great rapport. We're not afraid to talk about the crazy thoughts that go through our head because we know everybody in the group is experiencing them same thoughts, right? Like we're all just a little bit off from the norm. And so when we say things that are off from the norm, we're not worried about other people going, oh my God, did you just say that? Because they know exactly how we feel, right? And so that camaraderie in our group is definitely an inviting thing. We practice the joy of recovery, right? We don't want recovery to be so drawn out and sad and hard. Who wants to be in recovery if it's hard all of the time, right? You got to remember there's joy in recovery. And so those are some of the things that we talk about when we practice in FA, right? We talk about all the time. Let's not talk about the dour harshness of a life, without. Right. It's not what we're giving up. It's what we're gaining. So, I definitely encourage you, if you're having problems in those areas or if you need support or if you want to support, come see us 9:30 a.m. Saturday morning. Hit me or Sammy up. We'll send you a link. 9:30, hit that link. Either Sammy or myself will let you into the group. And then, you can sit and talk or you can listen. It doesn't make a difference. Participation doesn't have to be. All right, Jim's here. All right, we're going to bring Jimbo in the show. What's happening, Jimbo?
All right.
So, Jim, let me finish off what I was talking about on FA, and then let's get right to your last comment after that. So, anyways, everybody, and this is one of the faces right here that you'll see occasionally in group. Right now, we are doing all Zoom meetings because of COVID, but at some point, we will have a physical. We'll have a physical meeting again here in the Racine area, Kenosha, Milwaukee. We have meetings all over the place when we can. As of right now, we're doing it all on Zoom, so you can do it from the comfort of your home, which makes it even easier to join. So, what do you have to lose but a few minutes of your time? Come see us. Again, hit up Sammy. He left several links because he loves writing his own name over and over again. SammyWrangle.com, Sammy Wrangle, Sammy Wrangle, Sammy Wrangle. Right? That's why his head's so lopsided and huge. So, Jim, this is a conversation that you and I have had on a personal level mass amounts of times, right? We've talked about what we can do to become better people and to help others ease their transition from incarceration to society. So you're saying we need to take academic and professional credentialing as a necessary move forward as former offenders. Everybody through. See, I haven't yawned since then because I've been consciously trying not to, right? But thanks for mentioning it, because there I go again. Thumbs up, right? All right. So, Jimbo, so how do we do that? What steps do we take as offenders? Where do we get the financial assistance? How do we get the financial assistance? Do we get school loans? Some of us are ineligible for any type of loans or grants whatsoever after incarceration. And it's funny how we as a society make it harder for someone with a drug offense to get an education than a child molester, right? Like a sex offender who's molested a child can come home and get housing assistance, get food stamps assistance, get government health care, get grants to go to school, get loans to go to school. But somebody who's incarcerated for selling, 5 bags of pot can't.
Well, one of the things that I just found out, and I found out through Job Hunt, because even though I'm obviously a white middle-class individual,
yes, you are, homie.
I struggle with the same bullcrap. So while I'm out searching for jobs, one of the jobs that came across my desk was Marquette University has a program called CLEP. And that person is a community liaison educational program partner. All right. And that is the person who works with reentry folks who are going to be going into the UW system. So there's one point to start that I had no idea about until I came across it in my job hunting. As a human service professional, I'd like to think I'm dialed in, but I'm not. I don't have a clue. I'm lost when it comes to discovering these programs. Nobody really cares about putting that information out there. Again, because we're looked at as second-class citizens, we don't matter. So why bother?
Oh, hold on one second. Hey, Monty, is there a support group for family members of someone incarcerated? Does that exist in our area? Yes and no, Linda. Yes, Formers accepts family members, and it does help both the people in our group and the people who come to our group, right? So we get to see, as former offenders, we get to see the effects of our actions on our family members through you, and you get to see how we feel and what goes through our heads. But besides that, I'm not sure, so I'm not going to comment on it. But if there isn't, Linda, right, and I've known you forever because I love you and you're my sister. If there isn't, maybe that's something you, as somebody who is a family member of multiple people who have been incarcerated, can look into starting, right? Maybe you can be the groundbreaker on that one. So, Jim, you're right. There's very little afforded to those of us who are out here that we don't create ourselves, right? So what can we do to make that different? How do we organize? How do we get together? How do we make that a non-issue, right? So do we start a nonprofit that searches for these things just for men and women who are incarcerated or who are priorly incarcerated, and then makes them available to men and women who are in the recovery field or who are in recovery? What steps do we take to make that happen?
You're actually very, very much spot on. Okay. There, and I'm going to kind of backtrack for a second in my own experience. Now, the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 dictates that every state have what's called an independent living center, which is a disability resource center. Okay. And atypically they're 501c3 nonprofits. Okay. That is, I mean, we have these wonderful programs out there with the Second Chance program and these other programs to move forward with reentry.
Racing Vocational Ministries, those type of programs? Right. Okay.
But we don't have a resource centrally focused on reentry and those who have passed the reentry stage and are out here trying to hang. You know, I think at a certain point, it's no longer reentry and it's life under the stigmas and the stereotypes. And I think that is exactly what is needed is another nonprofit directly focused on that resource. You know, and I could go off on a complete rant as far as the funding possibilities. I mean, anything that's towards recidivism, the DOJ is just going to jump on, and there's all kinds of grant funding out there. You know,
all right. What's your so let's talk a little bit about your academical background and your you don't have to go into your personal background and how you're a former. And just so you guys know, Jim is a former. He is one of our oldest members as well, and an amazing friend. So Jim, what is your background?
My professional background is I hold a bachelor's of applied science in human services with social work pre-certification, and I have a minor in criminal justice. I am a nationally certified anger management specialist, and I'm a state certified peer support specialist.
All right. And so with all those fancy little diplomas and degrees, what do you think your place in society is and your responsibility as a former?
You know, honestly, I think that my place and my responsibility is to help my fellows move forward. Now, I'm in the process, the admissions process of my graduate degree, a master's of social work. You were talking about Sammy earlier.
Yep.
Okay. Sammy, who took the time to mentor me and work with me, right, has inspired me with what can be done with that credentialing as a licensed clinical social worker.
Yeah, he came from nothing. It's amazing how far you and him have come in the sense of where you started to where you are now. I mean, at one point you were a drunk truck driver who made it through day by day, and now you have, you're working on a master's. I definitely know as a human being, your mental and emotional dedication to helping others is there. I mean, you've always been a great well for me to draw upon as a friend and as a confidant. So what do we do as a community to make that happen? How can we make you, let's say we elect you, how can we make you, facilitate you to do that for our community? What do we need to do?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I sincerely think that what needs to happen is for me to finish the 88 credits that it takes to become a licensed clinical social worker with that credentialing.
88?
Now, the reason I say that, it's 88 credit. The reason I say that is because with a bachelor's of applied science, right, even in human services, nobody takes me serious. Nobody takes this serious. Without that credentialing, without that loud professional background, nobody wants to hear it. You're just another Joe. I mean, I'm not as charismatic as Sammy is or you are even. I'm just kind of like here with my pasty white face doing my thing. But with that credentialing, I'm taken serious. Right. You see what I'm saying?
Well, I take you seriously, just so you know. I definitely enjoy our discussions on recovery, right? And your ideas about recovery. And I think maybe we'll do a side, bar show once in a while, talking about the things we can do and getting it. Now, what's your anger management? I know you have an anger management program that you're you're heading up and doing. What can we do to assist with that? How can we get people into that? How can we send people to you? Is it something that you're currently doing, or is it something that you're waiting to do? And what can we do to make that happen? Because definitely anger management is the one program that I took while incarcerated that I still use today, right? So the anger management program that I dealt with in Green Bay Max during the earliest part of my incarceration is the one program that I still draw from, 20 plus years later, when I'm thinking about, doing something stupid. So.
Well, Monty, here's the thing, okay? At least in my experience, and this is strictly my opinion, okay, is a lot of the anger management that I've seen in my history and my experience is more of a dictation of how anger management should be undertaken. Okay.
See, we had a doctor, Dr. Mosier, in Green Bay Correctional, and he actually encouraged and believed in us. So we got lucky. I know there's been some bad ones out there.
Well, the approach that I'm taking is I'm doing it from a peer support perspective. So the education and the other part is in there, right? But as a peer support specialist, I do it from the perspective of a shared experience. I am a person with anger management issues. I grew up on the streets a little bit. I'm a disabled veteran. Life has knocked me around. And I'm, as a recovering alcoholic, those 27 years that I was out there running amok, all that did was fuel all those issues. And while I've been sober for 12 years, I'm basically a 12-year-old when it comes to learning to manage and practice good anger management. So when I work with somebody, I'm doing it from the perspective of a peer, not as an instructor or a teacher. I mean, the boundary is still in place, to be wrong. But when it's a shared experience, I think it has more value and more impact. And I mean, you just look at the show and what we're doing. Look at Formers. It's a shared experience. And that's where the impact comes from. That's how we become family.
Yeah, so over the last year, I've been looking for other programs that could mimic or that are akin to OCOR Racine, right? Our Community, Our Responsibility Racine and Formers Anonymous. And there's not much out there, right? This is kind of like a new thing. And, we're slow in growing here at OCOR, but we are growing. Our viewership has definitely grown quite a bit. And that's thanks to our viewers who share and like our page. But this is kind of groundbreaking, right? This is kind of new. Formers Anonymous, the idea that criminality can be as addictive or street life can be as addictive as heroin or alcoholism is definitely like shaking the foundations of addiction, right? There's still people who are appalled by the thought, and there are people who are going, oh, wow, a lifestyle can, actually truly be an addiction, especially since we go through the same withdrawal symptoms, the psychological withdrawal symptoms, as men and women who are addicted to a substance, right? How can we consider gambling a true addiction and then street life not, right? Well, what's the difference? It's still an addiction to the endorphins we receive from the acts that we do, right? And anger management, right? For me, we know what my addiction is, right? We know mine's power, control, and violence, right? Those are the three things that I have serious issues with, that I deal with on a daily basis. And I'm not going to say it's simple, but it's much easier now with the support system that I have in place for me to make the choices that are correct and live a life of kindness and peace and reconciliation and forgiveness and redemption, right? The pillars of our belief. And it definitely gives me more of a reward now than before. But that doesn't mean I still don't feel like, fucking someone's face up when they do something that really offends and hurts me, right? And I know that I would receive the same, emotional endorphins of pleasure from doing it, right? But will I still feel those feelings the next day? And that's what this is about, right? These discussions, these these videos that talk about incarceration, that talk about the effects of it on our community. All of these are because of those things, right? And I definitely know you and your heart and where you're at. And, you know, at no point have I ever thought you weren't truly dedicated to this life, right? This is something that you've shown over and over, and you've dealt with the consequences of your actions for what, 20 years now, right?
Plus 30 years, yeah.
30, yeah. Yeah, that's rough, bro. That's rough. But, you know, there's so many of us out here who don't know what to do. We're just, you know, regular Joes. If I remove myself from the experience of my incarceration and I envision myself as a regular Joe who's just lived his life and went to work every day, you know, graduated from high school and then got a job and has been working a job for, you know, the last 25 years, you know, when it comes to thinking about what we do to improve things, I'm at that same standpoint that generally most people are, which is, well, what do we do? What direction do we take? How do we move forward? How do we spread that word? How do we grow as a movement? How do we become a movement, right? Let's start at the beginning. How do we become a movement of change, right? A force of change in our community when we have never been instructed how to do anything more than what we've done, right? So people, you know, you say your pale, white, pasty face. Growing up, the only pale, white, pasty face I seen besides police officers and teachers was my dad's, right? I grew up East LA. I grew up South Central, Los Angeles. We didn't see white people unless they were like a deep part of our community, or they were coming to buy dope, or they were coming to arrest our parents, or they were coming to shoot our neighbors. I've had interactions with officers from childhood that we won't discuss on here.
Right.
So,
Lonnie, I want to spring something off of you. All right. And and this is a positive aspect about being a former offender. We take accountability much more serious than I think
absolutely.
A lot of the general populace does. Now, I mean, I hate to go all political, but if you look what happened on January 6th at the Capitol, right? How many of us have sat back and thought to ourselves, if that was one of us, they'd have put us under the joint?
Honestly, and I tend to stay away from politics on the program and be apolitical, but here's the truth. If the people that stormed the Capitol look like me or the people that generally live in my community, I think they would have opened fire and stopped us before that happened, right? That's truly my belief system. And that's not because I think white people hate minorities as a whole. That's not because I think the police are out to get us. I have many friends on the police force here in Racine and in Caledonia. I applaud them for what they do. They've, you know, the men and women that I know on the force and that I am friends with, including Art Howell, they've tried their hardest to breach that gap between our community. Do I believe in systemic racism? I do.
Absolutely.
I've experienced it. But how do we change that, right? So the narrative does it exist? The narrative is, how do we change it? What do we do, right, besides riot in the streets, right? So we've seen that over the last 2 years, right? And I know a lot of people blame BLM, but I have many friends in the BLM movement, and I've never heard them preach anything towards violence personally. Absolutely, I've heard them say, man, I wish I could, but I've never heard any of them encourage the act of violence. I don't know anybody in Antifa, and I don't think Antifa can be a group personally. An ideology of anti-fascism is different than a group of you know, left-wing nuts. But we can talk about it and argue about whether it exists or not. It doesn't really matter as long as people believe it exists, right? There's a problem. So how the narrative should be, where do we go from there then? How do we make this a non-narrative?
We do what we do best. We unite.
Okay.
That's what needs to happen. We need to pull together, and we need to pool our resources. You know, there are some folks out there, and this is something that bothers me deeply, is the perception that everybody who's a reentry or who's a former offender is some kind of mindless boo, because we're not. These are people with amazing strengths and amazing skill sets. They're just, these things are just not recognized because they're not that obvious.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
we have the occasional shining star like Sammy, right? Sammy has made it to a level of recognition to where, he's no longer affiliated with his criminal history. The same with like Carl Fields, Corey Prince, right? So how do we do that for the majority of men and women coming home instead of the minority of women, right? It shouldn't be a gem, in a handful of rocks. It should be the occasional rock in a handful of gems. That's how I feel, right? Like, I think everybody who comes home from incarceration has the same chance at stardom as any of the others who have made it to stardom from it, right? But how do we get them there? How do we convince them of that? How do we show them that their value is still there even after years of being told they're worthless? Right. I remember being in this AODA 5C program, and it being the cognitive based program, and the counselor looking at me and saying, calling me a liar when I told her that before we committed crimes, I was always sober. Right. It had to be that their belief was it had to be that there was a character D flaw inside of me that caused me to use drugs to commit crimes. And it was the opposite, right? There was a defect in my thinking that caused me to commit crimes, but I never did them while I was under the influence, which meant I couldn't blame my criminality on my addiction, right? Because my addiction, didn't drive my criminality in their sense, right? It wasn't a physical addiction. They said I had to be an alcoholic or a drug addict to do the things that I was doing, but those were never my addictions, right? I didn't drink too much. I didn't drink as an alcoholic as a teenager. I didn't use drugs as a teenager in the sense that they wanted. Did I smoke pot? Hell yeah, right? I'm 16, 17, 18, 19, living in the hood. Yeah, man, I rolled a lot of joints, right? I smoked a lot of bowls. Did I pop acid a couple of times as a teenager? More than a few, right? I didn't shoot up heroin or coke. I wasn't jonesing for a fix. I didn't steal so I could use drugs. I didn't steal so I could feed my family, right? These weren't the reasons why I was committing crime. But the AODA program was demanding that I say that all my crimes stemmed from my addiction to drugs and alcohol.
Right.
And that's why I was a criminal. And then they forced this belief that I was worthless as a human being unless I destroyed everything I believed in and everything about myself. And then they, not me, they could rebuild me into a better person, right? I wasn't able to rebuild myself because I was worthless, right? And this is what they would teach us, that we were worthless as human beings, that we had a genetical disorder in our brain that caused us to be lesser than others, and that the only way we could get better was to allow them to destroy everything inside of ourselves and then allow them to rebuild us into better human beings. Now, these programs have since been discontinued by the state and been recognized as harmful and not beneficial to us, right? It's never beneficial to force a human being to walk around with a oversized toilet bowl around their neck because they swore, right? So you were considered a potty mouth if you got caught cursing in group. And so then your punishment would be for 3 days, every time you left your cell, you had to carry around a toilet seat that was ginormous around your neck. Or if you were a crybaby, you had to walk around with an adult, with a massive bottle because you were a crybaby, or, you didn't follow the rules. Right. They would dehumanize you, right? So none of these things really worked, right? All they
So
did was
what's to stop us right now and here from laying the groundwork for a nonprofit with a mission? What's our
well,
barrier?
for me, time. I'm running a full-time moving company, a broadcast, three children under the age of 6. I'm 45. I can barely stand up some days. It hurts to pick my nose because my bones hurt. I don't know. What's stopping us, brother? I'm ready to take something else on my plate. Why not? Right? I'm down with it. Are you saying we want to reach out to viewers and say who wants to band together, unite, and start a 501 nonprofit that helps do what? What is our focus?
Well, that's what we need to decide. And here's the thing with a nonprofit: the first thing that gets established is a board. Okay, a board of directors. All right. And that board of directors sits down while they're forming the nonprofit and designs a mission statement and designs what needs to happen, what their mission and goal is. And really, what is our goal? Our goal is to better the opportunities of those who are former offenders and reentry, right? So, I mean, we're both familiar with the Second Chance program, and that's a great start. Okay. We're familiar with the work being done at RBM with helping people find housing and jobs and things like that. But what about after that? What about after that when it's 2 years down the road and you can't pay the rent, and you're thinking about jacking that dude at the ATM because your kids are hungry and crying? There's resources out there. One, we need a centralized place to put all those resources and make them accessible, which is something that a nonprofit can do. Now, personally, I'm not going to name the company because who knows what liability is involved there. But in my former professional capacity, all right, that's exactly what we did. We were a disability resource. We had 5 core missions, but we were a disability resource, okay? And when people would call us, we were data-driven. So we had a data system that the data is what drove the funding, the grants, okay? And automatically right off from jump, again, if it affects recidivism, there's 1 million grants out there, So really, we need to get off our dead asses and do something.
Hey, Linda, I know you're in, sweetheart. You have been a force of change since I met you when we were kids. Okay, so what's the first step we take?
Well, we do the research on what it takes to found a nonprofit. I have some information on that. I actually have a lot of information on that.
What about our viewers? What can our viewers do to help with that? So if you're viewing this now live or after live, what assistance can you give us in forming and starting a 501 nonprofit focused on reducing recidivism in our community, right? So if you have a friend or family who's a lawyer, a nonprofit lawyer, or in the legal field, when it comes to that, can you send them to us so that we can go further with that part of it? Or do you want to be a part of it? How's that? Ring ding dong. Dude, you look all official. Oh, go ahead.
The biggest barrier to forming a nonprofit is the expense of the application itself. It is expensive to form a nonprofit.
And what's the expense?
I believe the first application was around $450, and I don't remember what the next one was, but it was a chunk. It was a 2-step process.
Okay.
So it was expensive, which is why I run an LLC instead of a nonprofit.
Right. I just want to make a comment that has nothing to do with this current conversation. All the diplomas behind you, all the seals behind you. Thank you for your service, brother. Thank you for for the hard work you're doing in our community. But my favorite one behind you of all of those is your flag.
Yeah.
Is your flag.
Listen, thank you. By the way, it was a privilege to have served. But what I want to say, and this is one of the most important factors of the whole concept that we're talking about, is building bridges, right? Because I'm a member of the LGBT community. Okay, I have no problems with that. You know, I have no qualms expressing that in transparency. Okay, but what we have is now, if you look at the stigma that's attached, all right, I'll just use three areas to start with. We have a former offender, we have a veteran, right, and we have the LGBT people. Okay, community, what have you, individual. So any combination of those is stigma on top of stigma. Okay, look at the prejudice, and here I'll cross that bridge. Look at the prejudice against trans people in the military. Okay, now you take a transsexual veteran, right, and then they're an offender, right? You're looking at triple stigma, and that list just keeps growing and building and growing and building. Okay, and we need to bridge those. We need to close those gaps, you know, and that's where the unity comes in, as far as I'm concerned. You know, I think it's important, and you know, there's such a fear of LGBT folks that just right from the jump start, there's a barrier, right? And then you look at the former offender, and there's such a fear of the former offender. What are they going to do? We can't trust them. What are they going to pull now, right? And then you have a veteran who's saddled with the stigma of PTSD. I personally am a peacetime veteran, thank goodness. But you look at the combat vet, you know, with 15, 20 confirmed kills, and just woof, and they come back, and there's a stigma there. I know myself personally from having 3rd Infantry Division on the back of my vehicle, when pulled over with my white middle-class ass, and the cop approached my vehicle with his hand on his weapon, and I asked him, why is your hand on your weapon? And he says, I'm sick and fucking tired of you veterans. You guys are fucking nuts.
Why are they nuts?
You're dangerous. Former offenders are considered dangerous. You know, we have to bridge those gaps and overcome those stigmas, right? And so if you take and you can centralize all those resources to one place, and all these different factions, when they come to us, first off, they have to know that we're there. Now, how do we do that? We start at the prisons. We start at the jails. We start at the ministries, you know, the churches. A lot of folks, you know, they find spirituality along the way, wherever that may be, whatever it is or is not. You know, that's a starting point. We need to know that that information is out there. As an example, where I was before professionally, 3/4 of the people I encountered didn't even know it existed, you know, and we need to get that information out there. And we need to become a force in our community, you know, and I know that our community cares. I live in Kenosha, you know, with the riots made it around the globe, you know, so we know that our people are passionate about these things, and we need to become that force and that presence.
All right, you know, I'm always down for a movement. anything that'll benefit our community, benefit my family and my neighbors. I'm always looking to be a part of, right? So I'm down.
Monty, I'm telling you, I will lay down a commitment right now. I will commit to them, because I feel strongly about that.
I see.
You know,
and you already know I do. You know, I'm always willing to be a part of something that's going to help facilitate change in our community. I mean, why would that be something people would be opposed to? I don't know. Although we do know that there are people opposed to change in our community, right?
Right.
There's a need to continue to force a label and a stigmata on those different from themselves. But yeah, man, I'm down to help. I appreciate you coming on and hanging out with me too, bro. And as far as you saying it was a pleasure to serve, you know, we were talking about the badge on the back of your car and the combat veterans that come back. I got a friend. He is a former sniper. And we had a long talk. And one of the things he never will talk about is his kills. That's something that he can't talk about to this day. And he's been out of the military now he's been retired for almost a decade. He came home right after I did, except he came home from a combat tour. And I came home from incarceration, and I knew him before my incarceration. He was a lifer, and when it came to the military, he went in '96 and got out in 2013.
Mhm.
So you figure he did almost 2 decades of his life as a military member, and he was deployed, to 3 different policing actions or wars, or 3 or 4. But I know that he still struggles daily with what he had to do, and with who he is now and his identity as a citizen, right? Because he's no longer a member of the military. There's no rank involved, right? That's the same thing we go through as former
Yes.
incarcerated individuals, right? We don't know what our standing is in the free world because there was a hierarchy while we were incarcerated, right? We knew we were inmates. We knew there were COs. We knew there were sergeants. Well, let's start from the bottom. We knew there was inmates, staff. After staff, there went rookies. After rookies went COs. After COs went sergeants. From sergeants to lieutenants. Lieutenants to captains. Captains to admin, right? And so there was a clear chain of command in our lives for long periods of time, and then we're stuck into society, and there is no chain of command, right? There's
Right.
you and your PO, right? Police and judges, district attorneys, but hopefully you never have to see those, right? But when it comes to our daily life, we're so used to a daily life of structure that when we come home, sometimes we're drunk with the loss of structure,
Right.
or we're terrified of the loss of structure, right? I was terrified of the loss of structure. I didn't understand, right? Well, when were we going to have chow, right? What were my free times? What were my out hours, And I was a little overwhelmed with it, frightened of it. It took me a little bit of time to adapt. Now that I know
You see, you may not be aware, Monty, but I watched you develop from when you started coming to formers. Granted, you kind of had your hand in it before I got there, but watching you actively come to formers, watching you overcome your trials and tribulations and challenges, to watch that growth, to become somebody who I hold in the highest regard. When you first came to the formers, my thought was, who the fuck is this chucklehead?
Right.
Legit.
Right.
And look at us now to sit here and have this conversation.
I remember the first time Sammy asked me to chair a group. I was like, do what? What? He was like, well, and our belief in formers is that every member should be able to chair, right?
Right.
If you're actively active in recovery and you're working with others and you're working towards getting better and living a better life, then you should be able to chair a program, right? You should be able to chair group. And so we had talked about it a million times, and then he said, hey, how do you feel about chairing? And I was like, chairing what? Is it like caning? Do I got to hit somebody? What do I do? And he was like, you do nothing. You sit, you listen, you guide the group, right? So that we don't get off topic and waste 2 hours of our lives. Although it wouldn't be considered a waste, but we go off topic and don't address everything that's possible to address in the group or everyone, right? We need to make sure everybody has an equal opportunity to speak if they choose to, and then to guide the conversation in a productive manner, right? That's all the chair does. So when I chair a group, it's not that I'm the boss of the group or leading the group. I'm just quietly there leading the discussion so that everybody gets a chance to open. Hold on, I'm doing a quick message. But I was terrified of it, right? I was like, man, what kind of responsibility is this? And where's it going to go? And now we're talking about 8 years later. I've chaired a couple thousand groups, been a part of, a couple thousand more, and have loved every second of it, right? I don't remember a time I don't remember a time where I haven't been excited about group or upset when I've had to miss a group. Like I had to miss yesterday because of work and last week because of work. And it left my week feeling kind of like I lost, right? Like group has come to me now an exciting part of my Saturday morning, right? I get to group, I log in, we do our group, we talk, we discuss our week, we discuss our feelings. We have a member from Poland, and when Junior left us, I wasn't going to come to group that Saturday. I wasn't going to participate. It was too raw. It was too much for me. I kept convincing myself how I'd just take a week off or a couple of weeks off to get my bearings. And I came into group and it was just me and him. And I think that the support I had with him being there, just me and him, was so important. Was so important that without it, I don't know how I would have made it through that next week, right? That's what groups become to me. That's why I look so much forward to going. That's why I'm always talking about it, right? And people are always like, oh, great, Monty's going to talk about formers again, right? When I see him, it's like, hell yeah, you don't know. Just come to one or two groups. Just come to one or two groups, right? Just participate once or twice. And tell me you don't become addicted to it in the sense of it's so relieving when we know that it's coming up the next week and we're getting ready to leave and we become so excited and then excited to talk to them about our week, whether it was a bad week or a good week. I know there's a group of people I can draw upon to talk to and to work with at that point in my life that it's exciting and happy for me. Right. So.
Well, I want to pop this off you, Monty. Right. Now, I mentioned earlier about being 12 years sober, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it took about 12 years before that to finally commit to sobriety. Okay. Mm-hmm. And personally, for me, I'm sick of fucking groups. I am. You know how many AA meetings I've chaired and going into county jail and chairing all those formers meetings and what have you. I've lost my zest for it. And as I've grown academically, right, what we're talking about right now with the nonprofit, right, is I want on that. It was so easy to start my LLC. It was so easy. I was surprised at how easy it was, and I want on this. I can't even put it into terms that I can verbalize. Essentially, dude, I got a hard on for this shit. I want to get this started. And I think I have a few suggestions, okay? And my suggestion is, why don't we put together a web page, okay? And centralize everything to that web page, what we're trying to do, offer suggestions, put a box in the thing for people to come and drop ideas and thoughts. Who knows better than the people being served what they need? You see what I'm saying? And as a matter of fact, fuck you. I'm committed to this. I'm going to start it. Okay, that's just all there is to it. I want to start laying a foundation for it. We've talked about this how many times?
Yeah, a couple of dozens. So let's do it.
Let's do it. And why don't we open up a forum to come up with a name? Literally, me and you need to have like a conversation about this and start taking steps and then presenting the results of that conversation in one of your shows, to get the feedback and just move forward. So consider today the day. All right. I'm committed. Tell me you're committed and let's do it.
I am committed, bro. We've talked about it before.
Let's do it. What I mean, what the fuck? Let's do it.
So what's our topic for next week, Jim?
What the fuck?
What? I hate your guts. I hate it here. What's our topic for next week then? The name.
Well,
what can we do to the name?
Why don't we do this? Let's find, have your secretary call my secretary. Let's have a phone call or a Zoom meeting or something, right?
So what you're saying is I should call you?
Well, no, I'm going to call you because you don't never answer your fucking phone when I call anyway. So I'm going to call you, all right? And oh shit, let me slow down my roll here. Mental health, ADHD. The hamster just fell off the fucking wheel, man.
I already know, bro.
What I'm going to do tomorrow, okay, is I'm going to sit down and collect the information of what it takes to found a 501c3. Okay. I'm lucky that my former professional occupation was within a nonprofit. So I have a huge understanding. I'm a member of another nonprofit I'm going to shamelessly plug, which is Wisconsin Fathers for Children and Families. Yep. Okay. And, we have, as a 501c3, you have legislative possibilities where you can advocate for change in the system. There's so much that can be done. So what I'll do is I'll get together what it takes, what needs to happen to form that 501c3. And let's try to start on a mission statement, achieve, set some goals, and let's present it in your next show and see what the feedback is, if that's something you're comfortable with.
I'm always down. So next week we're gonna focus on ADHD. Hey, squirrel. So let's go ahead and talk next week about the direction that we want to go as a nonprofit. Who wants to be involved? Let's get our viewers, right? Our viewership should have a chance to get involved. Oh, hold on. I got a knock on the door, which means I'm going to be saying goodnight to Mateo. Hold on one second. Oh, and look, he has, don't mind the mess behind me. He has a pull-up on for once. Would you like to wear down his headphones for a second and say hi to Uncle Jim? Look, he's getting ready for bed with a pickle.
Hey,
and he wants you to see his pickle. Pickle, you want to, hold on. Say hi, Uncle Jim.
Hi.
Say hi.
Hi.
Say good night.
Hi.
Good night. Sweet dreams.
Papa.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hot baby. Dude. Yes, he's got a vroom now. He's going to play on Dada's desk. Because, of course, Dada's office is filled with work stuff like antique Matchbox cars.
Right.
So when I don't want him to mess my stuff up, what do? I put toys for him to want to play with. Vrooms and watches and shiny stuff, right? Give Dada kisses. Mwah. I love you. Good night. Okay, so I'm down. Let's go.
All right.
Hey, Evan, you are right. That's a heck of a night to end. Way to end the night, man, dude. These last couple months have been so life-changing and devastating and supportive all at the same time, right? Like, I can't begin to tell people how I feel because I don't know, right? There's no explanation for it. I was talking to a friend today, And she said, I have no words. And my response was, neither do I. I don't have the words to explain it because the words don't exist, right? There's a reason why. It's because it's inexplicable. But the word I have for the people who have come out to support and stand by me is absolutely unadulterated love, right? And that's the first time I've ever really understood unadulterated love from others, right? And that's been amazing. That's been like the pillar of my survival in the after, right? The me after. I'll never be the same. I'll never get over it. I'll never get past it. There was me before and me after. And the me after is here because of all of the unadulterated love and support. So that's been pretty awesome.
Monty, before we split, I want to share something that Sammy inspired and has become a mantra in my life. Hang on a second. I had to pull it off the wall.
He has it on the wall, you guys.
Get this where you can see it. Can you read that?
It won't focus. Hold on.
When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. And that's a quote from Viktor Frankl, who's a Holocaust survivor. He was there with Eli Wiesel. You know, and it was in one of Sammy's little bullshit classes that quote came up. And, well, he poo-pooed it.
Right.
He poo-pooed it. And to me, it smacked me right upside the fucking head so hard that was a game changer for me. Because I was fucking lost and didn't know what the hell to do. I was lost. And I didn't know what to do, how to move forward, who the hell I was, what I was about. Nothing. And Sammy stood in front of that class yammering the fuck away. And my mind was blown by a simple quote. You know? And hang on a second. Having since studied what this is all about, right? The only thing we can count on in life is that it's going to fucking change. Sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse.
That's the only thing you can count on is change and death.
And we might be powerless over that, but we're not fucking helpless.
That's right.
And that's the mantra that we need to get out there, man.
Sounds good. I'm going to real quick thank our commenters. Sandra Castellaneda, Dylan Garcia, Kat Berry, Missy Lee, Brett Finnegan, thank you. Jack Moore, I love you, brother. Thank you, dog. Jim Pease, we appreciate you coming on the show and your comments. Erica, thank you. Dreams Ramirez, Sammy Rangel, thank you for always being supportive. Just so you guys know, you can look in the link. We have Formers Anonymous, SammyRangel.com, Sammy Rangel. Okor Racine, thank you for your support. Julie Coddington, my producer, we love you. Incarcerated US, we have a page over there. They have a page over there called Formers, and they shared our tag. Erica Babita, Linda Sura, thank you for your continued support and your comments. We appreciate them. Kevin James, I've known you for the majority of my life. We grew up together in the institution. You're always a huge support and a huge part of my recovery. I love you, brother. Maria, thank you, Little Mags. Love you. Thank you for your help, for your comments. Evan Meekum. I met Evan like, I don't know, 5, 7, 10, 20,000 years ago. It's been about 7 years I've known Evan. He's an amazing dude. He's an amazing friend. Thank you. You're correct. That is a heck of a way to end the night and end the show. So next week, we're going to talk about creating a nonprofit, what we can do to help formerly incarcerated citizens. They are still citizens of the United States, even if legally we are considered second-class citizens. Those of us who are on paper, after we come home, we are not full citizens of the United States as long as we're on probation or parole. In some states, you'll never be considered a full citizen. You'll always have your rights restricted, and not your gun. I'm not talking about your gun rights right? I agree with that violent felons should not have gun rights. There's a reason uh, for that. But voting and job rights, those are something that thankfully Wisconsin is pretty proactive on. As soon as you're off probation and or parole, you can vote. You can be a part of the change in our system. I appreciate that. It's one of the few things the state of Wisconsin has done that I consider amazingly great and groundbreaking for us. There's states where you'll never be able to vote in a local or federal election as long as you've committed a felony ever, right? That's not while you're on paper. That's ever. There's states who restrict your right to vote in their state if you have a felony ever in life, whereas Wisconsin does not. It just says while you're on probation and or parole, you're unable to vote or make any of those choices. That's one of the few rights that I gave up that by becoming by being a felon, that really didn't mean crap to me as a kid, but mean everything to me now. Like when I see people going to vote, I have a definite issue of jealousy. I believe that having my voice heard is the most important thing I can do, and having our voices heard. So next week, we're going to look at what we can do to start a nonprofit for formerly incarcerated citizens to help get those who need help the help they need to continue moving forward and rebuilding their lives upon reentry into our community. And, Wisconsin does something different than other states. They purposely release people prior to their discharge date, so say you were incarcerated for 20 years, but no probation or parole, and you served all 20 years. When you were released, you would be off paper and free to go. Wisconsin makes sure that that's not possible, so that you have to serve some type of community time or community probation and parole time. So they try to always make sure they can let you go prior to your discharge date. It's a good and a bad thing. It is what it is. Personally, I don't see probation or parole as a hindrance to my life, right? I don't do anything to get them worked up. I don't do anything that would make them bother me. So I've never really had any dealings with them, right? Check in. I think I check in like every 3 or 4 months. I don't know. I don't remember the last time I've had to have a meeting with mine. So it's been that long. I get an email once every 4 or 5 months, and then we have a phone call. I've never met her in person anymore. But in the beginning, I had to see mine weekly. Like I had to be there every Friday to check in. And then it was once a month. And then after a few years, it was once every other month, I think. I don't know. It's been so long, I don't really remember. Right. So for me, probation and parole, it's a way to hold people accountable, especially for those who need that guidance, right? That strong hand. I don't. I don't, because I believe in what I'm doing, and I believe in my life, and I believe in my community. So, all right, Jimbo, love you, brother, man. I always enjoy talking to you, even if sometimes you drive me batshit crazy. That's just because you are family, right? So, wow.
Well, thanks for having me, man. Thanks for tapping me in on this one.
Yeah. Next week, I'll see if I can get Sammy in here so we can make fun of you.
Yeah,
instead of me.
I'm good with that. I had a few comebacks.
Or we can make fun of Sammy in that oversized freaking Triceratops dome he has, a ecliptic.
I love that dude, man. I love that dude. There was a time I wanted to choke him out, but See,
I don't think you could wrap like 6 people's hands around his neck in one.
You can't.
It's like it's like the size of a horse.
He's the one that inspired me to move forward, man, and I can't sell him short on that.
Right, definitely. Sammy's never going to be the one who's able to sugarcoat anything, right? And sometimes that can be abrasive. Sometimes that can even make me like want to choke him. But I've never had him say anything to me that was malicious. Everything he's always said has been something I needed to hear at that moment, whether I wanted to hear it or not. Hey, Sabrina. So yeah, I'll hit him up and see what advice he has for us. Because there was talk about formers going to a nonprofit at one point, but we decided, Sammy decided, and then we decided as a collective to stay out of that. Grant money becomes control money for 12-step programs, whereas what we're talking about, obviously having to prove our numbers is important, whereas with formers it's not, right? We don't care. We don't need that.
Hey, next week I want to see, where's my finger? I want to see Actus Nonverba LLC rolling across the bottom of this motherfucker, man.
You want to see what?
I want to see my website rolling across the bottom of there.
Oh yeah, all you got to do here, hey, why don't you go ahead and put that in the private chat? You see the thing that says private chat? Shoot that over in the private chat, and Julie will go ahead and throw that up on our banner real quick. We have a few more minutes. We'll have that rolling, and then next week we'll definitely have that. You're gonna have to send a bio in, so
Right.
Go ahead and get a bio with a picture.
It's all in the site. Hang on a second, and she'll have it.
Yeah. So next week we'll definitely roll down your bio on the bottom. Get that out.
It's all there.
All right. Holy crap, that was quick.
I don't mess around, man.
No games. I like that. Hey, Audrey. Thank you, Sabrina. Thank you, Audrey, for being a part of the show. We see you. Remember, you guys, when you're on our show, go ahead, hit that like button, hit that share button, hit the follow button, right? All that helps us to grow as we go. Our growth is important. In fact, at some point, right now, all of our show is self-funded, which means it comes all out of my pocket. Right? Anything we need, cameras, headphones, programs. Julie, our producer, actually pays for our StreamYard, which allows us to do the banners, the self-banners,
Oh, wow.
all the stuff.
There it is.
All the stuff we need to do. That stuff all costs money. So as we grow in viewership, we can gain sponsorship. And sponsorship is if you become a sub or a subscriber, not the sub that you guys are thinking of, perverts. It costs $5 a month, and that money goes to that money ends up going to partially Facebook, obviously, but the majority of it would come to us as a group to help continue to build. I'm still looking into what we need to do to make that possible. I know they want a lot of followers. I think we have to hit 1,000 followers before that becomes a possibility. So hit that follow button, support us where you can. Right now, what we need is likes, public shares. You can share the chat, but if you don't share it, or you can share the stream, but if you don't share it public, it won't mean anything. So what you do is when you hit the share button, you look over to the left and it's going to say share with friends, share with specific audience, or share public. Hit the share public. That public is what we need to do. And we are discussing the possibility of doing a podcast. Jimbo just hit up the question in the private chat. That is something that's in the works. That is something we're dealing with and talking about and trying to make happen. In fact, Julie, look, I have a podcast hosting website. So maybe we will turn this more into a podcast as we go. We'll let our viewers discuss that and talk about that and see how they feel about it and then go from there. I'm not sure we can host a podcast on Facebook, so I have to look into the rules and the situation. I do want to continue to keep our live Facebook feed. I have a lot of people who follow it and a lot of people who enjoy it, and they love to interact with it. Weather tonight started off really slow, really, to be honest with you guys. We started off, I think it was like 15, 20 minutes before we got our first comment, and then we went from that. So let's go ahead and look into this. I'll sit down and talk to Julie. Jim, stick around after we end the show.
Okay.
Me and Julie, we'll talk to you as we go. Otherwise, you guys, thank you for another great week. Thank you for another great show. I definitely enjoy our discussions, even when we fall off topic tonight. Tonight's topic didn't end where it started, but we're okay with that as long as we go ahead and continue to be a positive force in our community. That's what we care about, right? That is the true purpose of our show. So we love you guys. We'll talk to you guys again next week when we get back here with Jim Pease from Actus Nonverba LLC. We'll definitely talk about it some more. Thank you, Audrey, for the share. I love you, sweetie. Oh, and then she commented, shared it. So I actually see when you share. We appreciate those shares. They're important to us. Hit that like, hit that follow button. Let's grow this into a whole movement instead of just a Sunday fun day. So we love you guys. We're going to go ahead and head off now. We will see you next week, 8 p.m. Sunday night. We're going to talk more about building this nonprofit and seeing what we can do as a community here in Racine to grow and to make things better for our families.
And Kenosha.
And Kenosha, that's right. Maybe we'll start our OCOR Kenosha, right? Our community, our responsibility, Kenosha. We'll start a site down there and start spreading us out so that we can start, helping all the communities in our area. So thank you, everybody. Good night. We love you. Hope you enjoyed the show. We'll see you guys Sunday.